Okay, hey, Birth Story podcast family. I am alive. I am well. I am okay. The podcast is still here. So, what happened in 2025? I did not get pod fade. Do you guys know what pod fade is? Pod fade is when a podcaster just is burnt out. They just don't want to record episodes. I guess they don't want to talk to people anymore. They don't want to edit. And the podcast sort of just slowly flounders. Well, that's not what happened in my world. But so many people have emailed me and DM'd me and are like, are you still doing the podcast? And what's going on? And like, I feel seen that so many of you noticed that I wasn't publishing new episodes. What I did last year is I started a season 2 and I've slowly been uploading my entire book as singular episodes. So episode 1 is week 1 of pregnancy with a birth story. And then there's week 2 of pregnancy with a birth story. So that way you get, the book for free on the podcast. But I wanted to come on to the podcast for those of you loyal listeners that have been with me for 7 years or even 1 year or one episode, and just give you a little life update. So in January of 2025, I got served with divorce papers. Whoa. Now, if you've listened to the podcast through the years, in 2018, I air quote, got divorced, but I didn't legally get divorced. And in fact, I did something extra crazy, which was called a nesting divorce. That means my husband and I split up. We lived apart for a year, which is the law in North Carolina. We could have filed for divorce. And instead, we decided to buy a house together. I mean, I look back and there's several hundred episodes and I wonder what parts of the last 7 years did I even share with you guys? Was I even authentic about the story that was unfolding? My divorce was the result of a severe and significant and abrupt trauma. And in fact, I had a spinoff podcast called Thanks, It's the Trauma about it. So in North Carolina, we could have gotten divorced, but instead we bought a house together and we did this thing called a nesting divorce. So the house had like a main house and then it had a guest house out back. So my ex-spouse moved into the guest house out back. Our kids were really little. They were like 3 years old, like 3 and 4 because they're a year apart. And when I told them we were getting divorced, they literally said, "Can I have a hot dog for dinner?" when they were 3. And so they had no idea. And I will tell you, when I thought about getting divorced, the hardest part for me was like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my children, my babies, 50% of their lives. And my ex-spouse thought the same thing. And so we put our own life and mental health on pause to continue to raise our children together. So they would sort of like go to the guest house one night and then come to the main house with me. So we really did stay separate and have our own lives, but we tried to co-parent really well and tried to be friends. And both of us were like super miserable. I gained 50 pounds. I lost my gallbladder. I think I was just like so unhealthy that my body was just like, I'm going to make every organ not work. I ended up like fainting all the time. I had a heart condition. I got an implant in my heart. I mean, trauma to your body is just unbelievable. There's this book, The Body Keeps the Score. If any of you guys have had trauma and read that book, like it's just fact. And so I'm going to rewind 2018, October 21st, 2018. I woke up in bed with my husband in like the happiest life I could have ever imagined. Literally, like I thought I had like the 2 kids, the dog, and the white picket fence. Like I was so happy. And we went to church and we went to Target, and it was like this super normal day. And then my husband handed me a letter in which, I'll be honest, when I started reading it, I thought it was like a joke, but he had said, we need to talk. Like people say those are the words you never want to hear in a marriage. Well, I'll kind of fast forward the story, but my husband came out as transgender, someone who had hidden their identity their entire lives from their very conservative Christian Montanan family, and to me and to their friends, and society and culture told them that they were wrong. No matter what you believe, it doesn't really matter. This is my story to tell because it happened to me. I kind of get irritated when people have an opinion about transgender people, and I'm like, yo, it affected my life, not your life. So like, can you not talk about it? But you can listen to my opinion from someone who was harmed by religion, society, and culture that said transgender persons are fundamentally wrong. Something's wrong with them. And then they hide their identities and they get married and they have 2 kids. And then one day they try to commit suicide because living in the wrong body is so painful. And then also confronting society is so painful that they just decide to put a shotgun to their head and end it, which would have left my children without a parent. I rather my kids have 2 parents than 1. I rather my kids have 2 alive parents than 1 unalived and have to explain that trauma to them later. So my spouse transitioned, male to female. Our marriage ended that day, October 21st, 2018. Tons of like horrible anger, trauma, sadness, grief, like all of the things that you could imagine if your like spouse comes out as transgender. So fast forward a year, we decide to do this nesting divorce. Fast forward 5, 6 more years. I don't even know at this point, 6, 7 more years. And I am beyond miserable. I am like, I'm fat, I'm unhealthy, I'm in a horrible mood all the time. The only thing that brings me joy is work. I'm doing the podcast. I'm just in a really bad place. So at the end of 2024, I kicked my ex-spouse out when they doubled down on me and came out as gay too, which I guess for a transgender woman would technically be straight, but my ex-husband started dating a man. And then I just totally lost my shit, as you guys can imagine. Okay. And so I totally lose my shit because it was like one thing for my like ex-spouse or my spouse to have come out as transgender and then like years later to come out as gay. And then I just felt like the dumbest, most naive human on the planet. And I was like, this is the moment I take my life back. That should have happened 7 years earlier when we were separated for that whole year, and I could have like seized the opportunity to have gotten divorced and moved on with my life. But I just wasn't willing at that point to give up 50% of my kids' lives. Like I just couldn't imagine only seeing them for half their lives. So would I do it again? I don't know. I got a lot more time with my kids than I would have had if we had gotten divorced 7 years ago. So that brings me to why the podcast did not get recorded or loved or tended to in 2025. So November 2024, I like kick them out and their dumb boyfriend. I'm just kidding. He was really, really nice person. I was just really angry that my ex-spouse was attracted to men. That made me feel weird. Still makes me feel weird. Then I get served with divorce papers as they're moving forward with their life, and they get this house and they move in and with my children. And that's the moment, January 2025, that I lost my kids for 50% of their life. And at the same time, I was like, oh my God, I have to get a lawyer and I have to fight for like child support in this house and alimony and I don't know, emotional damages. Like all the things sort of unfolded. It was like, you would think that the hardest year of my life was the year my husband came out as transgender. Oh no, the hardest year of my life was losing my kids 50% of the time, trying to like run a business and stay afloat, put a smile on my face and love on everyone else. and pay zillions of dollars. Newsflash, doulas don't have tons of money. And it's like, 30 grand, 40 grand to get divorced. It's insane how much it costs to hire various lawyers, fight, just the emotional drain of all of it. So that's what I did in 2025. I had a lawyer and I was running a business and I was like in the middle of getting divorced and trying to like volunteer at the kids' school every other day so that I could see them, wake up at 6:00 in the morning to like drive them to school. So I would at least have like 10 minutes with them in the morning and 10 minutes with them in the afternoon. And so like what wasn't happening was recording podcast episodes or even publishing the podcast episodes that I had previously recorded. Thank you to all of the very patient people that I interviewed that are probably like, what happened to my episode? It never came out. So then more things happened. My work partner and I kind of split our business. I was in the middle of opening a new business, Birth Story Boutique. I had hired 14 birth doulas and counting. Then I opened a separate arm of that business for postpartum doulas and night nannies. And I hired 12 people and counting, and our placenta encapsulation business. And then I would hang up whichever client I was talking to and I would call my lawyer. And then there was more paperwork and more paperwork and more paperwork and more bills. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to double my workload. I'm going to have to take on extra doula clients because how in the world does a doula pay off like $40,000 in debt trying to get divorced and save her house? So it was a really, really, really hard year. And I will say I really did my best to sprinkle a lot of fun for me and the kids in because we were slowly drowning. So let me start with what I did for myself because I was like, man, the train wreck has happened. And then it's like now 7 years later, I was like, okay, the train wreck happened and then we just left the wreck there. And then in 2025, we set the train wreck on fire. So I did a few things to try to get my life back. And the first of them was travel. So we did New York City, me and the kids. It was really fun. We went cliff diving. We went skiing in snowshoe. We went on a Caribbean cruise with my kids' 90-year-old grandma, great grandma. So my grandma, who's still alive, and my parents, their grandparents. So it was really cool to kind of be on a cruise in the Caribbean with great grandma. I moved the birth stories to Instagram and called them Birthbound. And the engagement has been really high and super fun. So that's where like every time I leave for a birth, I'm like, hey guys, it's Heidi. I'm birthbound. Here's the backstory of the person who's in labor. And then as the labor unfolds, I'm like going to the nutrition room and like video recording updates. And then on the drive home. So I did that. We went fishing off of the coast of Florida with my brother, who's a fishing captain. Oh man, we did so much. And then I took a very deep dive into self-care. So like the rest of the world, I got on a GLP-1 and I lost that fucking 50 pounds that I had gained in trauma. And at this point, also my hair was down to my waist because I'm like, half lawyer, half hippie over here. And I was reading about how hair holds trauma and memories. And my next door neighbor, Dia, had recently shed his locks when his mom died. And I was like, okay, I'm going to cut off not all my hair. I mean, I cut it off to like my shoulders, but I cut off all the hair that could have possibly existed while I was married and in that trauma. It was really freeing, it was really, really freeing and super liberating. I can't even believe how much better I felt after that. I went to a lot of dinners with friends. I did a lot of yoga and breath work and Reiki. I started getting massages every 2 weeks. I went to acupuncture. I went to acupressure. I went to trauma healing workshops. I went to therapy every single week. I got on the Bumbles and the Hinge and probably just make myself feel better and went on like a zillion hilarious but not so great dates. And let's see, I went hiking a lot in nature and found a lot of waterfalls. And I love chai lattes. So I drank a lot of warm chai lattes and hot tea. And then I converted that guest house with all that toxic energy. First of all, I had a Reiki master come over and sage the entire thing, and sage me and the kids and the dogs and my mom and my sister. Like, we all just got like cleansed of like just 7 years of just trauma, sadness, grief. I planted a million things in my garden that would make me happy and that I could, perennials, right? That would come up every year and make me happy. And then once that space was cleansed, I had contractors come over and turn it into a humongous, amazing studio for my business, Birth Story Boutique. And now I like host book clubs and prenatal visits and childbirth education classes. And we do infant CPR in there and newborn care and breastfeeding. I mean, it's just Birth Story Boutique kind of replaced Birth Story Podcast for 2025, along with like a really big deep dive into self-care, because for 7 years I really was in therapy and grieving and doing trauma work. But it wasn't until like, I don't know what to call it. I don't know, when your husband doubles down as gay too, and then asks you for a divorce, like a legal divorce, that I really was like, all right, I have one life to live and I am gonna live it. So while I was like simultaneously in like the dumpster fire pit of divorce, debt, lawyer shit, I was also in this parallel world of like self-care, self-healing, oh my God, journaling and coloring and retreats with my girlfriends. And I mean, I'm really proud of myself. I really did it all. So that's what happened in 2025. So I'm here. I'm actually really happy, and I'm full of laughter and joy and love. And I am love, and I give love, and I receive love. I'm doing some nonlinear movement stuff. Life is good. So I don't know what the point of this is, other than maybe a time capsule for myself and everyone else. Oh, there was another really big thing. I had somebody go to hire me recently as a doula, and she said, oh, I've been listening to your podcast, and I started at the beginning. And she's like, I'm just not very religious, and it seems like you're really religious. And I guess I was really religious when I started this podcast 7 years ago, because remember, I was married to a man and had 2 kids and was happy, and we woke up and went to church the morning that I found out my life was like just over in a blink. So I was raised half Christian, half Jewish dad, Christian mom. And through this journey, I would say, of like yoga, breath work, self-healing, and then it was COVID nonsense, and we weren't really like going to church in person. And I will say that I have changed into a non-religious, very spiritual person. I'm still questioning a lot about religion. I'm still questioning a lot about the universe and light and positivity and kindness. But the leader of this country and the people that elected the leader of this country really tainted Christianity for me. So I'll just say that. So probably in a time where I needed God the most, I have kind of run towards spirituality more than I have run towards God. So that was also a big change I should probably put out there. But thankfully that client hired me anyway. And I serve a lot of clients of a lot of different religions and cultures, and from different countries and all different colors of skin. And I was really appreciative that she didn't judge me from a few episodes on the podcast and gave me an opportunity to be her doula. Okay, so that brings me to things being really hard. I think you guys kind of got that global picture. And last Christmas, so it's April 2026. So at the end of 2025, at the end of this like horrific shit year, I now have an ex-spouse who has a male partner, and they were together for 2 years. So that male partner is my children's stepdad. Well, he had a family, and his father, my children's step-grandfather, committed suicide the week of Christmas. And I had to love my children through that pain and that grief. And suicide is very complicated in families. And so over the months following that, it unraveled the relationship between my ex-spouse and their partner. And they ended up breaking up, and he moved out of their home, which was my children's home. And so I have been having to love my children now through also losing their stepdad. I mean, I wish I could make this stuff up, but it's all true and it's all real. And, we're getting through it. Okay. I definitely want to tell you another positive thing that's going on though. I was always really insecure about having tattoos. I don't know why. That's just the thing, And I decided in this last year that I was going to cover my arms in beautiful kind of mandala style tattoos that were arm sleeves. And what I didn't know is that tattoos are also very expensive. So like there's this lawyer debt problem, there's this acquiring my home problem. And then I sort of got a tattoo addiction. So shout out to Catherine at Halo in Charlotte, North Carolina. But I have these very beautiful tattoos that tell very intricate parts of my life story. So if you just look at me, you'd probably think maybe that's a vagina, maybe that's clitoris, maybe that's a penis. That definitely is an outline of a pregnant person. There's like a fish, mountains, lavender sprigs. But if you were to sit with me and have dinner or coffee, I could explain how each element of the tattoos was a part of my life or my story. One of them I even made on ChatGPT. That's a real story. I used AI to help design a tattoo that's on my arm. Kind of proud of that also. And my 76-year-old mother came with me and got matching tattoos of little ladybugs. My super conservative Christian Episcopalian grandmother somehow still believed in reincarnation. And so she said she was coming back as a ladybug. So we got matching ladybug tattoos. So when my mom and I hold hands, mine's on my right, hers is on her left. And we have little ladybugs that sit next to each other. So I've tried to do a really good job of sprinkling in joy where I could fit it in. So what I'm going to leave you on is the last 7 years are kind of a black hole. I don't even remember going to podcasting school, not 1 minute of it. And I did. I went to podcasting school in January 2019, 3 months after my marriage ended and that huge trauma. And I also look at pictures of Christmas and holidays, and I don't have any memory of them. So if any of you guys are listening along and you have been through a significant trauma, it's crazy how your mind just obliterates trauma, pain, grief. It's like it just can't handle it. So it just wipes it away from your brain. I'm saying that because this journey has been so parallel to birth for me. So the discomfort for me of pregnancy, the discomfort of childbirth, but then immediately after you give birth, it's obliterated from your brain. You have no memories of pain at all, at least on my unmedicated childbirth. And then, growing into someone new in parenthood. And in my case, I have just been growing into what I believe to be the absolute best version of myself. And this is the first moment. It's April 22nd, 2026. And it's Earth Day. Yay, it's Earth Day. And this is also the week that I gave birth 12 years ago. So 12 years ago, I was 42 weeks, 3 days gestation, and I had no signs of labor. I would go on another 4 days pregnant and give birth or 5 days. And I would give birth at 43 and 0. So I'm doing a lot of reflecting this week because I have a child who's about to turn 12 also. So that's my story. You can DM me or send me an email or follow me on Instagram at birth.story.academy. And let me know if you listen to this episode and if you have any follow-up questions. And there's like 7 of me in the United States, I think. And if you happen to know anybody whose husband or wife also came out as transgender and gay, let me know, because there's not that many of us. I don't really have a roadmap or much of a support system. So this is my cry for help. I would love to connect with more people across the world if anyone needs a friend in this type of story. So I appreciate your patience. My absolute love is this podcast. I am here. I'm going to interview and I'm going to publish episodes and I'm going to do my best in 2026 and beyond. So thanks so much for being here.